Denise Carter sat in her wheelchair by the window, watching the Atlanta sun dip behind the old brick buildings across the street. Her fingers moved quickly across the laptop keyboard, finishing up a security report for a client. The coffee beside her had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. When you spent 12 years in the Army, you learned to focus on the mission, not the small comforts. Her apartment wasn't much to look at from the outside. Just another ground floor unit in a neighborhood that was trying to figure out if it wanted to get better or worse. Some folks were fixing up their homes, painting porches, planting flowers. Others had given up, let the weeds take over, stopped caring. Denise had chosen this place carefully, though. Everything about where she lived was a choice, a calculation. The windows faced the street so she could see anyone coming. The back door was reinforced with extra locks she'd installed herself. The rent was cheap enough that she could afford the security system she'd set up herself. Most people looked at her and saw a woman in a wheelchair. They saw limitations, weakness, someone who needed help reaching things on high shelves. Denise saw things differently. She saw angles, sightlines, defensive positions. 6 years ago, an IED in Afghanistan had torn through her convoy and shattered her spine. The explosion took her legs, but it couldn't touch the sharp mind that had made her one of the best intelligence analysts in her unit. She'd spent 2 tours overseas, reading enemy patterns, predicting movements, keeping her soldiers alive. Those skills didn't disappear just because she came home in a wheelchair. Her service dog, a German shepherd named Major, lifted his head from his spot on the floor. His ears twitched toward the door. Denise's hands paused over the keyboard. She'd learned to trust that dog more than most people. Major had been with her for 3 years now, trained to help with doors, pick up dropped items, and alert her to things she might miss. But more than that, he had instincts that reminded her of the bomb-sniffing dogs she'd worked with overseas. "What is it, boy?" she asked quietly. Major stood up, walked to the front window, and stared out at the darkening street. Nothing obvious. A few cars parked along the curb. Mrs. Chen from upstairs walking her tiny poodle. The streetlight flickering like it had been for the past month, something the city kept promising to fix but never did. Denise wheeled herself to the window and looked out with different eyes. Not the eyes of someone watching the evening settle in, but the eyes of someone trained to spot what didn't belong. There, 3 houses down, a dark sedan she didn't recognize. 2 figures sitting in the front seat. They'd been there yesterday, too, around the same time. And the day before that. She made a mental note and wheeled back to her laptop. Her fingers flew across the keys, pulling up the footage from her security cameras. Yes, there it was. The same car, different times over the past 3 weeks, always staying just long enough to watch, never long enough to draw attention. Most people wouldn't notice. Most people weren't trained to notice. Denise saved the footage to her cloud storage and opened another window on her screen. Her neighborhood watch group chat started 6 months ago when break-ins started happening more frequently. She scrolled through the recent messages. Mrs. Johnson, 2 streets over, had her garage broken into last week. The Rodriguez family lost their TV and laptop 3 days ago. The elderly couple on the corner had someone try their back door in broad daylight. A pattern. Always homes that looked vulnerable. Always when people were out or seemed like easy targets. The police had increased patrols, but it wasn't enough. The neighborhood was changing and not everyone was happy about it. Young guys with nothing to do and everything to prove were seeing opportunity in other people's hard work. Her phone buzzed. A text from Tommy, a veteran from her support group who lived across town. "You watching the game tonight?" It was code. They'd developed their own language, a way of checking in without being obvious about it. The game meant, "Are you okay? Everything good?" She texted back, "Might record it and watch later. Working late. Translation. All good, but staying alert." Tommy responded with a thumbs-up emoji. He was good people. Served 3 tours in Iraq as a combat medic. Lost his hearing in one ear, but gained a family of veterans who'd walk through fire for each other. That network mattered more than most people understood. When the world saw you as broken, having people who saw you as capable meant everything. Denise closed her laptop and wheeled into the kitchen. Her apartment was small but efficient. Everything she needed was within reach. Lower cabinets she could access easily, counters at the right height, a system for everything. She'd learned that independence wasn't about doing things the way able-bodied people did them. It was about finding your own way and making it work better than anyone expected. She fed Major and made herself a quick dinner. Chicken and rice, vegetables on the side, simple, healthy fuel. As she ate, her mind wandered back to those years overseas. The heat that made you feel like your skin was melting. The sand that got into everything. The constant awareness that danger could come from any direction at any moment. She'd been good at her job. Really good. Reading intelligence reports, spotting patterns in enemy activity, briefing commanders on where threats were likely to emerge. Coming home had been the hardest mission of all. Not the physical therapy, though that had been brutal. Not learning to navigate the world from a wheelchair, though that came with its own frustrations. The hardest part was feeling like all that training, all those skills didn't matter anymore. Like she'd been put on a shelf marked, handled with care, fragile, do not disturb. But Denise had never been good at sitting still. She'd built a new career as a security consultant, helping businesses identify vulnerabilities in their systems. Turns out, thinking like the enemy was a valuable skill in the civilian world too. She made decent money, enough to live on, enough to feel like she was contributing something. Major's ears perked up again. This time he let out a low growl, something he rarely did. Denise felt her pulse quicken, not with fear but with focus, that same calm that used to descend during briefings before missions. She wheeled to her security monitor, a small screen mounted on the wall that showed feeds from all 4 of her cameras. Front door, clear. Living room, clear. Kitchen, clear. Back door, and she stopped. There, in the dim light of her back porch, a shadow moved. Then another. Someone was out there, and they weren't just passing by. They were checking her locks, testing her door handle, looking for a way in. Denise's mind shifted instantly into tactical mode. She glanced at the clock on the wall. 9:47 on a Friday night. Most of her neighbors would be out at dinner, at the movies, visiting family. She was alone, or at least these people thought she was. They'd watched long enough to learn her routine, to know she was by herself. She reached for her phone, fingers steady, and pulled up her emergency contacts. Then she wheeled herself to the corner of her living room, the spot she'd chosen months ago for exactly this reason. Good sight lines, solid wall behind her, only one angle of approach. Her hand moved to the drawer beside her chair, the one with the biometric lock that only opened to her fingerprint. Major positioned himself beside her, alert and ready. The dog knew something was wrong. Animals always knew. Outside, the shadow moved again, and Denise heard the faint scrape of metal on metal. They were working on her lock. They thought they'd found an easy target. A woman alone in a wheelchair. Someone who couldn't fight back, couldn't run, couldn't defend herself. They had no idea what they'd just walked into. Denise Carter might not be able to walk, but she'd spent years outthinking people who wanted to kill her and everyone she served with. These amateurs didn't stand a chance. She took a slow breath, centered herself, and waited. In about 90 seconds, they'd come through that door expecting one thing and finding something completely different. The mission had just begun. The sound of splintering wood cut through the quiet apartment. They were through the outer door faster than Denise expected. These guys had done this before. She could hear them in her small back hallway now. Whispers and shuffled footsteps, thinking they were being quiet. They weren't. Not to someone who'd spent years listening for enemy movement in the dead of night. Her phone was already in her hand, fingers moving across the screen with practiced precision. First, the silent alarm to the police. No ringing. No obvious notification that would alert the intruders. Just a direct signal to emergency dispatch with her address and the code for home invasion in progress. Second, a quick message to the Veteran Network group chat, 3 words. Active situation now. They'd understand. Third, she activated the recording function on all her internal cameras, the ones these guys didn't know about because they were hidden in smoke detectors and picture frames. All of this took 12 seconds. Major stood rigid beside her wheelchair, every muscle tensed, waiting for her command. She kept one hand on his collar, holding him steady. Not yet. Timing mattered more than action right now. The interior door handle started to turn. They'd picked that lock too. Denise had expected that. She'd actually made it easier than it needed to be because she wanted them to get in, wanted them to feel confident. Overconfidence led to mistakes, and mistakes were what she needed. 4 of them came through. She could tell by the footsteps the way they fanned out into her living room. Young guys, probably late teens or early 20s based on their build and movement. They wore dark hoodies and bandanas covering the lower half of their faces. The one in front carried himself like a leader, shoulders back, chin up. The others looked to him, waiting for direction. They stopped when they saw her. sitting there in her wheelchair in the corner of the room, calm as someone waiting for a bus. The living room lamp cast enough light that they could see her clearly, see that she wasn't screaming or crying or begging. That probably wasn't what they expected. "Well, look at this," the leader said. His voice carried that edge of bravado young men used when they were trying to sound tougher than they felt. "Thought you'd be asleep by now, Grandma." Denise didn't smile, didn't frown, just looked at him the way she used to look at new recruits who thought they knew everything. "You've got 5 seconds to walk back out that door. After that, this becomes a situation none of you want to be in." The one on the left, shorter than the others with nervous energy radiating off him, actually laughed. But it was the wrong kind of laugh. The kind that came from nerves, not confidence. Denise filed that away. "Weak link identified. You threatening us?" The leader took a step forward. "Lady, I don't think you understand how this works. You're gonna tell us where you keep your money, your jewelry, anything valuable. We take it and leave. Nobody gets hurt, simple." "You're right," Denise said, her voice steady. "It could be that simple. But you made 3 mistakes already." That got their attention. The leader stopped moving. "What?" "First mistake, you watched me for 3 weeks from that dark sedan. Black Honda Accord, license plate starting with BXK. You parked in the same 3 spots, came at the same times. Predictable. Second mistake, you disabled my external camera but didn't check for internal ones. I've got all 4 of your faces recorded in clear HD, uploading to cloud storage as we speak. Even if you destroy my equipment, the footage is already somewhere you can't touch it." She could see the uncertainty spreading through the group. The nervous one shifted his weight from foot to foot. Another one, tall and thin, glanced toward the door they'd come through. The leader's jaw tightened. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Want to take that chance?" Denise picked up her phone with one hand, keeping her other hand out of sight. "Third mistake, and this is the big one. You assumed someone in a wheelchair couldn't defend themselves. You saw a disability and thought it meant helpless. That's going to cost you." "Rashid, man, maybe we should just go," the nervous one said. His voice cracked on the last word, so the leader's name was Rashid. "Good to know." Denise watched his reaction, saw the flash of anger that one of his crew had used his name. "Amateur hour." "Shut up, Kenny," Rashid snapped. "She's just some crippled lady trying to scare us." 2 names now. Even better. But Kenny's fear was growing, and fear made people unpredictable. Denise needed to manage this carefully. "Kenny, is it?" she said, focusing on him. "You got kids?" His eyes went wide behind the bandana. "How do you, your Facebook profile is public. 2-year-old daughter. Beautiful little girl. She's got your eyes. You really want her growing up visiting you in prison? Because home invasion is a serious charge. We're talking 5 to 15 years, and that's if nobody gets hurt." "She's lying," Rashid said, but there was less certainty in his voice now. "She can't know that." Denise turned her attention to the tall one. "And you must be Dre. You posted about this job on your story 3 hours ago. Didn't say what you were doing, but the timestamp and location tag put you 2 blocks from here. Your probation officer is Officer Stevens, right? Wonder how he'd feel about you violating the terms of your early release." The temperature in the room changed. What had started as a simple robbery was turning into something else. These young men were realizing they'd walked into a trap, but they couldn't figure out how someone they'd watched for weeks had turned the tables so completely. "This is insane," the 4th one said. He was the biggest of the group, but his voice shook. "How does she know all this?" "Because I'm trained to know," Denise said simply. 12 years Army intelligence. I spent my career tracking people who were trying to kill me and everyone I served with. You think 4 kids breaking into my apartment is challenging? I've forgotten more about tactical awareness than you'll ever learn." She watched them process this. Young minds racing, trying to figure out if she was telling the truth or running an elaborate bluff. The reality was somewhere in between, but they didn't need to know that. Major's growl rumbled low in his chest. The dog sensed the tension rising, knew his handler was in potential danger. Denise tightened her grip on his collar slightly, a signal for him to hold position but stay ready. "Listen to me carefully," she continued, her voice taking on the tone she'd used for mission briefings, clear, authoritative, no room for argument. "Right now you've broken into my home. That's bad, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Nobody's hurt. Nothing's been stolen. You leave now. I'll tell the police I scared you off before you got inside, that my security system did its job. You'll face trespassing charges at worst. Maybe community service, maybe nothing at all. Why would you do that? Dre asked. Because I've seen what prison does to young men like you. I've watched people throw their lives away over stupid decisions made in a moment of desperation or pride. I don't know your stories, don't know what brought you here tonight, but I know you've got a choice right now. Walk away and learn from this or stay and regret it for the rest of your lives. Rashid's hands clenched into fists. She could see his pride warring with his survival instinct. Being outsmarted by someone he'd dismissed as weak was eating at him. That made him dangerous, and if we don't leave? He asked. Denise's expression didn't change. Then we find out if I'm really as helpless as you think I am. But here's something to consider. Police response time in this neighborhood is typically 6 to 8 minutes. I pressed my panic alarm about 90 seconds ago. That means you've got maybe 5 minutes before units arrive. My security footage shows your faces clearly. You've given me your names. Even if you run now, they'll find you by tomorrow. So the question isn't whether you're going to get caught. The question is what you're going to get caught doing, breaking and entering, or something much worse. In the distance, faint but growing louder, a siren began to wail. It might not be for her. Could be heading anywhere. But the sound had an effect. Kenny took a step backward. Dre's eyes darted to the door again. She's playing us, Rashid insisted, but his voice had lost its edge. There's 4 of us and 1 of her. She can't even walk. You're right, Denise said. I can't walk, but I can do this. Her hand moved to the small control panel mounted on the arm of her wheelchair. 1 button press and every light in the apartment went dark. Simultaneous gasps from the intruders. In the darkness, she activated the laser sight on the weapon they couldn't see, painting a red dot on the wall just above Rashid's head. Another button, and the piercing shriek of her custom alarm system filled the apartment. Not the kind that called police, the kind that made your ears ring and your head pound and your thoughts scatter like startled birds. In the chaos and darkness and noise, Denise Carter sat perfectly still in her wheelchair, completely in control, waiting to see which choice these young men would make. The alarm cut off as suddenly as it started. Denise had only let it run for 5 seconds, but those 5 seconds had done their job. In the darkness, she could hear heavy breathing, shuffled footsteps, confusion. She pressed another button and the lights came back on, but dimmer this time, creating shadows that made the room feel smaller, more enclosed. The 4 young men stood frozen, blinking against the light. Kenny had his hands over his ears. Dre had backed up against the wall near the door. The big one, who hadn't given his name yet, looked like he wanted to run but couldn't make his feet move. Only Rashid held his ground, but even he looked shaken. What the hell was that? He demanded. Modified security alarm, Denise said calmly, as if they were discussing the weather. Sound frequency designed to disorient. I can trigger it again if you'd like another demonstration. You're crazy, Kenny said, his voice high and tight. This lady is crazy, Rashid. We need to leave, right now. We're not leaving empty-handed, Rashid shot back, but there was uncertainty creeping into his bravado. We came here to do a job. Denise tilted her head slightly, studying him. She'd seen this type before. Young men who'd built their entire identity around being tough, being respected, being feared. The kind who'd rather make a terrible decision than admit they were wrong. Those were the dangerous ones, the ones you had to handle carefully. Let me tell you what's going to happen if you try to do this job, she said. First, you'll have to get past Major here. He's trained for protection and he's very good at it. You come at me, he comes at you. That's going to end badly for at least one of you, probably whoever's closest. As if on cue, Major's lips curled back, showing teeth. The growl that came from his chest was deeper this time, more threatening. The big guy took an involuntary step backward. Second, Denise continued, even if you somehow get past my dog, you've got me to deal with. And I know you're thinking, she's in a wheelchair, what's she going to do? But here's the thing about wheelchairs. They give you incredible upper body strength. My arm's probably stronger than any of yours, and I've got military combat training. Hand to hand. Close quarters. I might not be able to chase you, but I don't need to. You have to come to me. She could see them processing this, looking at her arms, at the way she sat in that chair like it was a throne instead of a disability aid. The wheelchair wasn't making her smaller in their eyes anymore. It was making her seem more dangerous, more unknown. Third, and this is important, every second you stand here is a second closer to those police cars arriving. You hear that? They all went quiet, listening. The sirens were definitely louder now. Could be 3 minutes away, could be 5. Hard to tell with city acoustics, but they were coming, no doubt about that. Rashid, man, please, Kenny said. There were tears in his voice now. I can't go to jail. I just got this job at the warehouse. My girl, she's finally starting to trust me again. I can't lose everything over this. You should have thought about that before, Rashid snapped, but his anger felt hollow. He was trapped now, cornered by his own pride and the situation spinning out of his control. Denise decided to push a different angle. Kenny, you said you've got a job now. Warehouse work is honest money. Not much, but honest. Why risk it for this? Kenny's eyes darted to Rashid, then back to Denise. He said it would be easy. Said you had good stuff, that you lived alone, that nobody would know. And you believed him? You trusted someone who scouts disabled women living alone? Denise let that sink in. Kenny, you seem like you're trying to do right. This isn't the path. You know that. Don't listen to her, Rashid said. She's trying to divide us. I don't need to divide you, Denise replied. You're already divided. Half of you want to leave. The other half are just following because they're afraid of looking weak. But let me tell you something about weakness. Weakness isn't admitting you made a mistake. Weakness is making that mistake worse because you're too proud to back down. Dre spoke up for the first time in a while. She's right, Rashid. This whole thing is wrong. Look at her setup. Look at how ready she was. We walked into a trap. It's not a trap if we take control, Rashid argued, but his voice lacked conviction. Denise shifted tactics again. Rashid, can I ask you something? What's your plan here? Let's say you somehow overpower me, get past my dog, take whatever you think I have. Then what? The police already have your description from my security footage. They know your name because Kenny said it. They'll have your face from my cameras. You'll be arrested within 24 hours. So what's the end game? For the first time, Rashid didn't have an immediate answer. He stood there, jaw working, trying to come up with something that made sense. Nothing did. I'll tell you what the smart play is, Denise continued. You walk out right now. All four of you. I give you 60 seconds head start before I talk to the police. I tell them my alarm scared you off before you got inside. You ran different directions. I couldn't see which way in the darkness. That gives you a chance. Not much of one, but better than standing here when those officers arrive. Why would you do that? The big guy asked. He had a softer voice than she'd expected. Why help us? Because I don't want to see 4 more young black men in the system if I can help it, Denise said honestly. I've seen what happens. I've watched good people with potential get chewed up by a justice system that doesn't care about rehabilitation. You made a mistake tonight. A big one. But it doesn't have to define the rest of your lives. The room went quiet except for Major's low breathing and the distant sirens. Denise watched the calculations happening behind their eyes. Pride versus survival. Loyalty versus common sense. The moment hung there, fragile and dangerous. Kenny broke first. He pulled the bandana down from his face. I'm out. I'm sorry, miss. I'm really sorry. This was stupid. So stupid. He turned and headed for the door. Dre hesitated for maybe 3 seconds, then followed. Yeah, I'm done too. This ain't worth it. The big guy looked at Rashid, waiting for his friend's decision. Rashid stood there, fists still clenched, everything in him screaming not to back down. But slowly, painfully, the fight went out of his shoulders. This ain't over, he said, trying to save face. Yeah, it is, Denise replied gently, and that's okay. Sometimes knowing when to walk away is the bravest thing you can do. Rashid turned toward the door, then stopped. You really going to let us go? I'm really going to try, Denise said. But you need to move now, those sirens are getting closer. He nodded once, sharp and quick, then headed for the back door. The big guy followed. Within seconds, all 4 of them were gone, disappearing into the Atlanta night like shadows. Denise sat in her wheelchair, listening to their footsteps fade. Her heart was pounding now, the adrenaline she'd kept locked down starting to flood through her system. Her hand shook slightly as she picked up her phone. Major whined softly, pressing his head against her leg. She ran her hand over his fur, steadying herself. Good boy. Such a good boy. The sirens were very close now. She could see flashing blue and red lights reflecting off the buildings outside. She took a deep breath, centering herself, preparing for what came next. A knock on her front door, hard and official. Police, anyone inside? In here, Denise called out. I'm the resident. Doors unlocked. 2 officers entered, hands on their weapons but not drawn. A man and a woman, both looking alert and ready for trouble. They took in the scene quickly. The broken back door, the woman in the wheelchair, the dog sitting protectively beside her. "Ma'am, we got a panic alarm from this address," the male officer said. "Are you all right?" Denise nodded slowly. "I am now. Someone tried to break in through my back door. My alarm system went off and scared them away. They ran before they got inside." The female officer moved to check the back door while her partner stayed with Denise. "Did you see how many there were?" "Get a description?" This was the moment. Denise had made her choice when she let them go. Now she had to commit to it. It was dark. The alarm confused me. "I think maybe 2 or 3 people. They ran in different directions." I couldn't see clearly. The officer made notes. "We'll check the area. Do you have security footage?" "External camera was disabled," Denise said, which was true. Internal ones didn't catch anything useful. Too dark, too chaotic. She watched the officer's face, wondering if he believed her. He looked around the apartment again, taking in the strategic setup, the military precision of everything. His eyes lingered on her for a moment. "You handled this well," he said finally. "A lot of people would have panicked." "Army training," Denise replied. "It sticks with you." The female officer came back from checking the back door. "Looks like they picked the lock. Professional job. This is the 3rd break-in on this street this month." "Same MO. We'll file a report," the male officer said. "Get someone out to dust for prints, though I doubt we'll find anything useful. You should get that door reinforced even more. Maybe consider moving somewhere safer." Denise almost smiled at that. "I appreciate the concern, officer. But I'm not going anywhere. This is my home." The police stayed for another hour, taking photos, filling out paperwork, asking the same questions in different ways. Denise answered everything calmly, sticking to her story. The alarm scared them off. Too dark to see clearly. She couldn't identify anyone. By the time they left, it was past midnight and exhaustion was settling into her bones like concrete. She locked the front door behind them and sat there in the quiet, her hands finally starting to shake for real. Major pushed his head into her lap, sensing her distress. She buried her fingers in his fur and let herself feel it. The fear she'd locked away during the confrontation. The weight of the choice she'd made. The gamble she'd taken on 4 strangers who could have hurt her. Sleep didn't come easy that night. Every small sound made her alert, listening for footsteps that didn't come. Her mind kept replaying the scene, wondering if she'd done the right thing. Those young men could be out there right now planning another robbery. Someone else's home, someone who might not be as prepared. Had she protected them or just passed the danger to someone else? Morning light came through her window, gray and unwelcome. Denise made coffee and checked her security system. Nothing overnight. The neighborhood was quiet. She pulled up the footage from before she deactivated the cameras and watched those 4 faces again. Young. So young. Kenny with his nervous energy. Dre glancing at the door like he wanted an escape. The big one following Rashid like a shadow. And Rashid himself, all that pride and anger barely holding back the fear underneath. Her phone buzzed. A text from Tommy. Saw the police report. "You okay?" She typed back slowly. "Yeah, false alarm mostly. They ran off. Need anything? I can come by. I'm good. Thanks for checking." But she wasn't good. She was second-guessing everything. That was the problem with making decisions that went against your training. The military had taught her clear rules. Threats were neutralized. Evidence was preserved. You didn't let enemy combatants walk away because you felt sorry for them. But these weren't enemy combatants. They were kids from her own neighborhood making desperate choices. 3 days passed. Denise threw herself into work, taking on extra consulting projects, anything to keep her mind occupied. She reinforced her back door, added another camera, upgraded her alarm system. Her apartment was becoming a fortress, and she knew it was more about feeling in control than actual necessity. On the 4th day, something unexpected happened. She was reviewing security footage from her front camera, just routine checking, when she noticed someone standing on the sidewalk across the street. Young man in a hoodie, hands in his pockets, just standing there looking at her building. Her heart rate picked up. Then he pulled down his hood and she recognized him. Kenny. She watched him through the window, trying to decide what to do. He wasn't approaching, wasn't threatening, just standing there like he was working up courage for something. After 10 minutes, he started to walk away. Denise made a decision. She unlocked her front door and wheeled out onto the small porch. "Kenny!" He stopped, turned slowly. The fear on his face was obvious even from across the street. "Miss Carter, I wanted to..." Come here, she said, not unkindly but firm. He crossed the street like he was walking to his own execution. Up close, she could see he looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes. His clothes wrinkled like he'd been wearing them for days. When he reached her porch, he couldn't meet her eyes. I'm sorry, he said, voice cracking. I'm so sorry. I can't sleep. Can't eat. Keep seeing your face, how calm you were, how you could have had us all arrested and you didn't. I don't understand why. Denise studied him for a long moment. You got kids, Kenny, I meant what I said about that. Your daughter deserves a father who makes good choices. I know. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I quit. Told Rashid I'm done with all of it. He's mad, calling me soft, but I don't care anymore. I just wanted you to know that. What you did letting us go, it meant something. To me anyway. What about the others? Kenny shook his head. Rashid's still angry. Feels like you embarrassed him. Dre's laying low, won't return my calls. Trey, the big guy, he left town. Went to stay with family in Florida. Said he's done with Atlanta. And you? You really done? Yes, ma'am. Got my warehouse job. Picking up extra shifts. It ain't much money, but it's honest. My girl, she's proud of me for the first time in forever. My baby girl, she smiles when I come home now instead of crying. That's worth more than anything Rashid promised. Denise felt something loosen in her chest. Maybe she'd been right after all. Good. That's real good, Kenny. But I need you to understand something. You got lucky. I gave you a second chance, but the world won't keep doing that. Next time you make a choice like that night, there might not be someone willing to let you walk away. I know. I really do know. He looked at her directly for the first time. Can I ask you something? Why'd you do it? Why not just turn us in? She thought about how to answer that. I've seen too many lives wasted. Young men with potential who made one bad choice and never got the chance to come back from it. The system, it's not built for rehabilitation. It's built for punishment. And once you're in it, it's so hard to get out. I figured if there was even a small chance one of you might turn things around, it was worth taking. I won't waste it, Kenny said. I promise you that. Don't promise me. Promise your daughter. He nodded, wiping his eyes again. I should go. Just wanted to say thank you. And sorry. Really, really sorry. Denise watched him walk away, shoulders a little straighter than when he'd arrived. Major whined softly beside her chair. I know, boy. I hope I did the right thing, too. But the universe wasn't done testing her choices. 2 days later, around 8 in the evening, someone knocked on her front door. Hard. Aggressive. Denise checked the security camera and felt her stomach drop. Rashid stood there alone, but his body language was all anger and tension. She considered not answering. Considered calling the police right then. But something made her open the door, keeping the screen door locked between them. What do you want, Rashid? He looked worse than Kenny had. Not tired, but wound tight like a spring ready to snap. You ruined everything. Kenny quit. Trey left town. Dre won't even answer my calls. My whole crew fell apart because of you. No, Denise said firmly. Your crew fell apart because you led them into a situation they weren't comfortable with. Because you valued your pride over their safety. That's on you, not me. You think you're so smart, sitting there in your chair like some kind of hero. You don't know anything about us, about what we deal with. You're right. I don't know your specific story, but I know about struggle. I know about making hard choices, and I know the difference between surviving and destroying yourself trying to look tough. Rashid's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Denise thought he might try something, but then his shoulders sagged and he looked less angry and more lost. They all left me. I got nobody now. That's not true. You've got a choice. Same one I gave you that night. You can keep going down this path, blame everyone else for your problems, end up in prison or worse, or you can admit you're on the wrong track and change direction. It ain't that simple. It never is, but it's still a choice. Denise leaned forward slightly. Kenny's doing it. Working an honest job. Being there for his kid. If he can do it, why can't you? Because I'm not Kenny. Rashid's voice rose. I don't have a cute kid to go home to. I don't have a girl waiting for me. I got nothing but the street and the respect I built there, and you took that from me. Respect built on fear isn't respect, Rashid. It's just people waiting for someone stronger to come along. Real respect? That's earned through how you treat people, how you handle your business honestly, how you show up when things are hard. He laughed bitterly. You sound like my grandmother. Always talking about dignity and respect and doing right. Look where it got her. Dead at 65, worked herself to death cleaning other people's houses. And you think she'd be proud of what you're doing? Robbing people? Scaring disabled women in their homes? That hit him. She could see it in his face. Don't talk about my grandmother. Then don't insult her memory by throwing away everything she tried to teach you. They stood there, separated by a screen door and about 1,000 miles of life experience. Denise could see him struggling, wanting to stay angry because anger was easier than admitting he was lost. What do you want from me? He finally asked, voice quieter. Nothing. I don't want anything from you. But I'll tell you what I hope for. I hope you figure out that the path you're on ends badly. I hope you find something worth working toward instead of something to run from. And I hope you do it before it's too late. Rashid stood there a moment longer, then turned and walked away without another word. 3 months went by like water through fingers. Denise settled back into her routine, but something had shifted inside her. She couldn't stop thinking about that night, about Kenny's visit, about Rashid's anger and pain. She'd spent 12 years in the military protecting people, and now she was home doing the same thing in a different way. But one night, 4 young men, it wasn't enough. Her neighborhood was full of people who needed protection, who needed knowledge, who needed to know they weren't helpless. She started small, posted flyers at the community center about a free home security workshop, expected maybe 5 or 10 people to show up. 23 came. Elderly folks worried about break-ins, single mothers trying to keep their kids safe, people in wheelchairs like her who felt vulnerable. She taught them simple things: how to reinforce doors without spending much money, where to position cameras, how to make your home look occupied even when you're out, basic awareness techniques that had kept her alive overseas. The next workshop, she had 40 people. The one after that, 60. Word spread. The disabled veteran who outsmarted home invaders was teaching people how to protect themselves. Local news picked up the story. A reporter came to interview her, young woman with kind eyes and too many questions. How did you know what to do that night? The reporter asked. Training, Denise said simply. And understanding that fear is just information. It tells you there's danger, but it doesn't have to control your response. Some people are calling you a hero. Denise shook her head. Heroes are people who run into burning buildings. I was just a woman defending her home with the skills I learned serving my country. Nothing heroic about that. It's practical. The story ran on the evening news. Her phone didn't stop ringing for 3 days. People wanting workshops, wanting advice, wanting to share their own stories of feeling unsafe in their homes. She had to start turning people away. Couldn't keep up with the demand. That's when Tommy called with an idea. You need to make this official. Start a nonprofit. Get funding. You could reach way more people. I don't know anything about running a nonprofit. So learn. You learned how to defend yourself in a wheelchair. You learned how to track enemy movements in a war zone. You can learn paperwork and fundraising. He was right, of course. Within 2 months, she'd filed the paperwork for Safe Home Initiative, a nonprofit dedicated to teaching vulnerable populations about home security and self-defense. Tommy helped her apply for grants. Other veterans from their support group volunteered their time. By the 6th month, they had a small office space donated by a local business owner who'd heard her story. The workshops grew. She brought in experts, former police officers teaching about locks and alarms, self-defense instructors who specialized in techniques for people with limited mobility, IT professionals teaching digital security. It became bigger than just her, bigger than that one night in her apartment. One afternoon, about 8 months after the break-in, Denise was setting up for a workshop when someone knocked on the office door. She looked up and froze. Kenny stood there wearing a neat button-down shirt and work pants, looking healthier than she'd ever seen him. Kenny, this is a surprise. Miss Carter. He stepped inside nervously. I hope it's okay I came by. I heard about what you're doing here. Teaching people to protect themselves. It's fine. You're always welcome here. She gestured to a chair. Sit. Tell me how you're doing. He sat down, hands folded in his lap like a kid in the principal's office. I'm good. Really good. Still working at the warehouse. Got promoted to shift supervisor last month. My daughter, she's 3 now, talking up a storm. Says she wants to be strong like Daddy. Denise felt warmth spread through her chest. That's wonderful, Kenny. I'm proud of you. Thank you. He paused, gathering courage for something. I came because I want to help. With this. He gestured around the office. What you're doing here, teaching people, giving them tools to protect themselves. I want to be part of that. What did you have in mind? I could share my story. In the workshops, show people that someone who made bad choices can turn it around. And maybe, I don't know, help set up equipment or whatever you need. I'm good with my hands. Can build things, fix things. Denise studied him carefully. You understand that would mean admitting publicly what you tried to do that night? People will judge you for it, I know. But maybe hearing from someone like me, someone who almost threw everything away, maybe that reaches people in a way you can't. You're strong, you're trained, you're a hero. Me, I'm just some kid who almost ruined his life. If I can help one person make a better choice than I did, it's worth it. She thought about it for maybe 10 seconds. Okay, you're hired. Well, volunteer hired. We don't have money to pay anyone yet. His face broke into a huge smile. I don't need money. I need purpose. This gives me that. Kenny became a fixture at the workshops. He'd share his story raw and honest about that night, about the fear and desperation that led him there, about standing in Denise's apartment and realizing he was throwing away everything that mattered. Some people in the audience cried. Others nodded like they understood. A few young men approached him afterward, asking questions, looking for guidance. 2 months after Kenny started volunteering, Denise was locking up the office late one evening when a familiar figure appeared in the doorway. Rashid, but different. Haircut neat, wearing a grocery store uniform, eyes clearer than she'd seen them before. Before you say anything, he started. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just need to talk. Denise wheeled back slightly, giving herself space, old instincts kicking in. Okay, talk. I got a job. Real job, not street stuff. Stocking shelves overnight at the market on 5th Street. It ain't much, but it's something. He looked down at his hands. Took me a long time to get here. After that night I came to your door, I kept going down bad roads. Got arrested twice. Nothing major, but enough to wake me up. Judge gave me a choice. Jail or a work program. I chose the program. That's good, Rashid. I'm glad you're making better choices. I saw Kenny's interview. The one he did with that news lady about working with you. Saw him talk about that night, about what almost happened. It took guts to admit all that publicly. Kenny's found his purpose, helping others avoid his mistakes. Rashid nodded slowly. That's what I'm trying to do too. Find purpose. Find something that matters. I ain't asking to volunteer here or nothing. I know I burned that bridge. But I wanted you to know that what you said about my grandmother, about respect, it stuck with me. Took a while, but it stuck. Your grandmother would be proud of you right now. Taking responsibility, working honestly. That takes more courage than anything you did before. He wiped his eyes quickly. I got a long way to go still. But I'm going. That's something, right? That's everything. After he left, Denise sat in the quiet office looking at the photos on the wall. Pictures from workshops, families learning to protect their homes, elderly people standing straighter, more confident, people in wheelchairs demonstrating defense techniques. Kenny in several of the photos, smiling, helping, present. Major nuzzled her hand and she scratched behind his ears. We did something good here, didn't we, boy? Her phone buzzed. A text from Tommy. Just got word. We got the grant. $50,000 for the next year. We can expand. Denise looked around the small office that had become a hub for change in her community. $50,000. More workshops. More people reached. More lives potentially changed. She thought about that night in her apartment. 4 young men in masks, herself in a wheelchair with nothing but training and determination. She'd had a choice that night. Turn them in or give them a chance. She'd given them a chance and Kenny had taken it. Trey had left Atlanta and was apparently doing well in Florida, according to Kenny. Dre was still finding his way, working odd jobs, staying out of trouble. And Rashid, slowly, painfully, was climbing toward something better. Not everyone would make it. Statistics said most wouldn't. But that night had taught her something important. When you saw someone as helpless, as a victim, as a target, you missed their power. Those young men had seen her wheelchair and assumed weakness. She'd seen their potential and offered possibility. A year after that night, Safe Home Initiative was operating in 3 neighborhoods. They taught over 400 people basic security measures. Police reported a 15% drop in home invasions in the areas where they worked. Not all of that was because of them, but some of it was. Some of it absolutely was. Denise still lived in the same apartment, still had the same security system, though she'd added even more layers. But the neighborhood felt different now, safer, more connected. People looked out for each other. Mrs. Chen upstairs had taken one of the workshops and now ran a neighborhood watch program. The Rodriguez family had reinforced their doors and windows. The elderly couple on the corner had a new alarm system and the confidence to use it. One evening, Denise sat on her porch watching the sunset paint the Atlanta sky in shades of orange and purple. Major lay beside her chair, content and peaceful. Kids played in the street. Music drifted from open windows. Normal life, safe life. She thought about her time in Afghanistan, the mission briefings, the tactical operations, the constant vigilance. She'd thought coming home meant that part of her life was over. But it wasn't over. It had just changed form. She was still protecting people, still using her training, still serving, just in a different uniform. A young woman pushing a stroller walked by and waved. "Hey, Miss Carter. See you at the workshop Thursday?" "I'll be there," Denise called back. The woman continued down the street, her stride confident, her head up, alert but not afraid. That's what this was all about. Not making people paranoid or scared, but giving them tools and confidence to move through the world safely. Kenny's truck pulled up and he hopped out, carrying boxes of flyers for the next workshop. "Got these printed. They look good. Thanks for grabbing those." He carried them inside, then came back out to sit on the porch steps. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the neighborhood settle into evening. "You ever wonder what would have happened if you'd called the police that night?" Kenny asked. "If you'd turned us all in?" Denise considered it. "Sometimes. But I try not to live in what-ifs. I made a choice based on what I saw in that moment. It could have gone badly. You all could have kept making terrible decisions. But I believe there was a chance, however small, that showing mercy might matter more than seeking justice." "It mattered," Kenny said quietly. "It really mattered. To you, yes. The jury's still out on whether it was the right call overall." "It was," he insisted. "Even if I was the only one who changed. Even if Rashid never gets all the way there. Even if Trey never comes back. One life changed is worth something, isn't it?" Denise smiled. "Yeah, one life changed is worth everything."